welcome to Park Yoga. My name is Debbie and I'm here to bring a session particularly suitable for teenagers. So it's one of our shorties, so it'll be about 30 minutes and it's particularly suitable for teenagers wanting to have a go at some yoga postures. So just briefly about Park Yoga. Park Yoga is a charity and it brings together yoga and the outdoors, being in nature. I'm actually in a field in Wales at the moment recording this session, and so the outdoors is really important. If you are able to manage to do the session outside, then that's great. And as a charity, we've been offering virtual sessions on a Sunday and these shorter sessions as well, and we just really want to share the benefits, all the wonderful benefits of a yoga practice and being active in the outdoors. So welcome to everybody who's able to join for this session, specifically aimed at teenagers. Just a few things before we start. If you need to seek any medical advice before you start your practice, then please do so, particularly with a virtual practice where the teacher isn't able to see what you're doing. A big part of yoga is actually self-care, looking after ourselves, and so this needs to carry through everything in our practice, in our physical posture practice. So don't do anything that is going to put too much strain on your body. Listen to your body, listen to what your body is telling you. So just a few things for those of you who haven't done any yoga before about what yoga is or what yoga isn't. Yoga began over 5,000 years ago in India. It has its own language that comes with it called Sanskrit, so you may sometimes hear people using Sanskrit words for the postures. For example, Tadasana is mountain pose, Balasana is child's pose, so you might hear those words, and Asana is the word for postures. And those are all from the traditional Indian language, and so it's a way of paying respect to the tradition of yoga. Yoga isn't a religion. Anybody can take part in yoga and benefit from yoga. And just for your own perhaps research in the longer term, we tend to think of yoga as being just postures. But actually there are 8 limbs to yoga, and the postures are just one of them, called asana. The breathing exercises and techniques, pranayama, are another limb of yoga, and you might want to just explore these different aspects of yoga and have a look and see and find out a little bit more. So what we're going to do in this session is just start with a few breathing exercises, because the breath work is so important in the yoga practice. So it's the breath that helps you with the movement, or the breath that helps you finding your stillness and ease in your postures. And I've just brought along with me, because it's quite difficult to visualize what we do in our yogic breathing. I've just brought this with me just to try and show you and get the idea of what it is to breathe in through the nose, expanding chest, rib cage and abdomen, and then breathing out through the nose and bringing the tummy button back to the spine. So this just might help to visualize. So breathing in through the nose, if that's comfortable for you, taking the air into the chest, rib cage and abdomen, so filling up that space like a big balloon, pausing for a second, just holding at the peak of that in-breath, and then exhaling, and the tummy button comes all the way back to the spine. Our breath is part of our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous system, which means that we can do it, we have to do it, but we can also do it mindfully and slow it down and control the way that we are breathing, which can be really useful to help us bring our nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, and soothe us in times of anxiety. And you might already observe with the inhaling and exhaling that your breath is starting to lengthen and deepen. You might want to actually count how many seconds you're inhaling for. Suggest maybe 4, and a short hold, and then exhaling for 4 or maybe 6. But just for the moment, seeing if you can get that sensation of the tummy expanding, filling with air on the inhale and expelling all of the air, and tummy button going back towards the spine on the exhale. And the way that we use the breath in yoga is that as we inhale in our postures, we might lengthen or deepen the pose, and as we exhale, we relax a bit further into the pose. And in this session we're mainly going to work with standing postures and with the focus that it might bring in our standing postures. But just before we come into standing, we're just going to do a couple of gentle twists and get used to the sensation of staying in a pose for 5 breaths. So inhaling, lifting the arm up, exhaling, taking your right hand to the left knee, and just taking your gaze over the left shoulder, and just keeping that connection with the breath, with the expansion on the inhale, the release on the exhale, and using that breath to just see if you can take the twist in the abdomen a little bit further. Relaxing the shoulders away from the ears. Counting your breath. And on the next exhale, you're coming back to the center and inhaling to lift the arm, left bicep close to the left ear. Exhaling, taking the left hand to the right knee. Taking the right hand behind you just for some gentle support without leaning on it. And just breathing into that opening, feeling your sit bones really grounded on the floor. spine straight, soft face. And on the next exhale, coming back to the center. We're just going to work with lifting the arms on the inhale and lowering the arms on the exhale, just to get that sensation of inhaling as you lift, hands together, and exhaling as you lower. You might start to feel that things are slowing down a bit for you. And in a yoga session, at any time that you feel that you don't want to be in those particular postures, or it's not comfortable for you, or you're just feeling like a little rest, you can come into something called child's pose. So bringing your buttocks towards the heels, the forehead in contact with the mat, palms facing up. This is Balasana in Sanskrit, or child's pose. And in this pose you can just gently be aware of the rise and fall of the abdomen on your thighs, and just take your attention to the inside of you, just checking in with yourself about how you're feeling. And that posture is just available for you to take at any time. So we're going to come now to standing. We're going to come into mountain pose, in Sanskrit known as Tadasana. And one of the things in yoga is that we are mindful of the connection that we have with the earth. So all four corners of the feet, really connecting with the ground. You might want to just lift your toes up a little bit, come onto your toes, the sides of your feet. Just be mindful of that contact with the earth. So I've themed the practice with focus. So the postures that we're going to work on are really good for bringing yourself to a good place in your concentration. So starting with mountain pose. So it might look as if we're not doing very much, we're just standing, but actually we're grounding down through the feet, we're engaging the thighs, slightly tipping the pelvis, ribs rising from the hips, shoulders away from the ears, face soft. And just take a moment here to be aware of your breath again, and that sense of expansion on the inhale and release on the exhale. You might want to close your eyes and just visualize the breath, breathing the body, finding expansion and allowing release. From our mountain pose, we're going to take the right foot back and take the foot at about 45 degrees, lining up the heel of the left foot with the middle of the right foot, so pushing down through the outer edge of the right foot. We're going to come into a pose called warrior. And warrior is a strong pose where we're finding our balance. You may want to keep your hands here or have them in prayer pose, or if you can, just lift them and take a gentle back bend. Sinking the hips, tucking the tailbone, engaging the core. Two. Inhale, exhale. Three. Inhale, exhale. Four. Inhale, exhale. Five. And safely coming out, taking the hands either side of the left foot, framing the left foot, and then taking the right foot to join the left, and rolling up and coming back into mountain pose. And now warrior on the other side. Those of you who haven't done any yoga before, if the posture isn't symmetrical, then we always do it on each side. So here we are with warrior. Now we are taking the left foot back, bending the right knee, lifting the hands if you can. Four, inhale, exhale, five. And taking hands either side of the right foot, left foot joins right, and slowly rise. And from our mountain pose, we're just going to come into a forward fold or ragdoll position. So you might hold your shins, or you might be able to touch your toes. Be careful not to lock the knees out. You can straighten your legs. Just find what feels right for you and just stay here for 5 breaths. You're used to touching the toes. You might be able to put your hands under the toes, straighten the legs a little bit. See if you can find that sensation of the belly expanding as you inhale, and tummy button going back towards the spine on the exhale. This is a really good posture if you're feeling a bit tired, because it just brings fresh oxygen to the brain and releases the back of the neck, top of the shoulders. And from the forward fold, we're just going to lift the arms and sit back and come into chair pose. Utkatasana in Sanskrit. It's like you're sitting back on a chair, lowering the hips, and you might find that your thighs start to warm up. It's really good for the circulation, or if you're feeling a bit cold. And again, just see if we can find 5 breaths here, but only if that's comfortable. You can always release back to forward fold, or take a child's pose. Inhale, exhale, 3. Inhale, exhale, 4. Inhale, exhale, 5. We'll do one more. Inhale, and exhale back to a forward fold. And we're just going to come into a child's pose together, just so you can get that sensation of release in the shoulders, and just checking in with yourself about how you're feeling, particularly if this is one of your first yoga sessions. One of the great things about yoga is that you don't need anything in particular to do a bit of yoga. A mat is good, but you don't have to have a mat. Comfy clothes are a good idea, but not essential. And particularly in these times of uncertainty, I think for a lot of people, yoga, particularly in these past few months, has been something that they've been able to rely on and do in their own time and in their own space. And it's just perhaps helped them to feel a bit less anxious, a bit stronger. And of course, any physical activity is really good for your hormones, your endorphins, and for keeping yourself in a positive frame of mind. So yoga really has so many benefits, and I wish I'd discovered it when I was a bit younger. So as a teenager, if you're starting to get into your yoga now, then you've got a really interesting path ahead of exploring and practicing. Practice means progress, and practicing and finding that it is something that just can help you feel a bit happier in the happy times and a bit less sad in the more difficult times. So it really is something that can help you a lot. So we're going to now just take a wide-legged forward fold, so outer edges of the feet parallel with the short end of the mat. And we're just going to fold from the hips, hinging down from the hips, bringing the hands to the mat, and just hanging out here a little bit, feeling the stretch in the hamstrings. You might want to just take a little bend in the knee, one knee at a time. Don't force anything. And from the forward fold, we're just going to pivot the foot around on the left side, and we're going to come into a triangle pose, Trikonasana in Sanskrit. Just see how wide you want your stance to be, and line up the heel again with the middle with the arch of the other foot. We're going to lift our arms to shoulder height. And we're going to push away with the right hip, and we're going to windmill the arms down, keeping our body straight, brushing up perhaps the ribs towards the sky. You can use a block here if you've got a block, and you might want to take your hand behind your back, or you're drawing a line from one hand to the other. You don't need to bring the hand to the mat. And again, just counting your inhale and exhale. safely coming out of the posture, bending the left knee, just coming back to that forward fold again for a moment. You might start to notice that your body's feeling a little bit more flexible. And then we're going to do our Trikonasana, our triangle on the other side. So right heel lining up with the arch of the left foot, and foot at about 45 degrees, but it varies for different people. Some people prefer to have it at 90 degrees. Your aim is you're keeping your hips square to the long end of the mat. So lifting the arms shoulder height. You might want to just lift the palms up and then lower them again, just to release the shoulders a bit. Arms engaged, pushing away with the left hip and windmilling the right arm down towards the right shin and taking the gaze up to the sky and keeping that connection with the breath. I think this is something that takes a bit of getting used to if you're new to yoga. You might want to just make a little adjustment and brush the hips, the ribs, up towards the sky. Take your arm back. And safely coming out of the posture. I'm just coming back to mountain pose for a moment. So those are a few of the standing postures that you can start to practice and hopefully get into a bit of yoga. So hopefully you found that useful and interesting. Now, a yoga session would normally end with some relaxation, so just lying down. If you're new to yoga, you might prefer to lie down on your tummy, but you can lie down on your back. I'm just going to lie down on my tummy this time and just make a little pillow for my head. Lying on your tummy is quite good for just being aware of the rise and fall of the abdomen. So if you can, still breathing through the nose, inhaling and exhaling through the nose. And the 8 limbs of yoga that I talked about at the beginning of the session. One of the 8 limbs is kindness to self, Another one is kindness to others. So yoga isn't just about postures, it's about self-care, compassion for others, breathing exercises, physical postures, meditation, awareness, and all of these things have their Sanskrit names as well. So if you're really interested in finding out more, there's lots of research that you can do to understand more about what yoga is. And for teenagers who are sporty, if you want to help yourself to be free of injury, to have a good mental state, to perform in your sport, then a yoga practice is really, really helpful to support you in your other sporting activities. There are also some really good challenges that you can do in yoga, things like the crow pose, balancing on your arms. So well done for joining the session, and I hope that you might, if you're not already practicing yoga, meditation, mindfulness, I hope that you might feel a bit inspired to do some more, and certainly look out for us next summer when hopefully we'll be back in the parks running the park yoga sessions for you. Thanks to everyone for joining. Thank you. Namaste.